You've been in that room. Everyone else is talking, laughing, fitting in perfectly. And you're just watching, not because you're shy, because something about you feels fundamentally, stubbornly different. Maybe it was a work meeting where everyone nodded along. And you were the only one thinking, wait, is nobody else seeing this? Or a party where you smiled the whole night and still felt completely alone. Or flip it completely. Maybe you were the one everyone kept staring at. Not because you did anything dramatic. Just because you walked into a room and something in the air quietly shifted. There's a Korean expression that captures this exact feeling. 4 characters, thousands of years old, and somehow more precise about this experience than anything in modern English. Welcome back to K-Wisdom. 4 characters Korea has kept alive for thousands of years. Today's idiom, gun-gye-il-hak. Before you assume it's just a compliment, stick around. By the end of this, you'll be asking yourself some very uncomfortable questions about which bird you actually are. 4 characters. Gun, a flock, a crowd, gye, chicken, il, hak, crane, one crane, standing in a flock of chickens. Not smarter, not more successful, just different, in a way that can't be faked, can't be learned, and cannot be ignored. Someone so distinctly themselves that standing next to ordinary people makes ordinary look like a costume. This idea was born in an old Chinese story, but Koreans made it their own. And the story doesn't begin with the crane. It begins with a man who was killed for being one. Ji Shao, 3rd century China, philosopher, poet, musician, one of the most celebrated minds of his era. He composed music on a 7-stringed guqin, the kind of playing that made soldiers put down their weapons. The emperor had him executed anyway. His son Ji Shao grew up carrying that weight. The son of a condemned genius. Whispered about, pitied, people assumed he'd live quietly in his father's shadow and eventually disappear. He had other plans. The day Ji Shao walked into the capital city of Loyang, the streets were their usual chaos. Merchants haggling, soldiers on patrol, nobles carried past in silk-curtained chairs. A completely ordinary day in the Jin dynasty. Then people stopped, mid-sentence, mid-step. A merchant let his bronze scales tip without noticing. Nobody could explain it. Ji Shao hadn't announced himself. Hadn't performed anything. He'd simply arrived. And the air changed. One witness couldn't contain it. He ran straight to the scholar Wang Rong. Yesterday I saw Ji Shao walking through the crowd. He was barely breathing. He stood there like a wild crane standing in a flock of chickens. Wang Rong didn't look surprised at all. He just smiled, quietly. The kind of smile that tells you someone already knew something you're only just now figuring out. 5 words. You've never seen his father. Stop and sit with that for a moment. Ji Shao, the most striking presence in the entire capital city, was only the 2nd most extraordinary person in his own family. And he'd never get to meet that man again. You know this person. Every office has one. Every group has one. The one who walks in and the dynamic quietly shifts, not because they're loud, not because they perform. Just because they're completely, unmistakably themselves. But here's what nobody tells you about being the crane. You never quite blend in. You can try, God knows some people try. But the loneliness of being permanently slightly out of tune with the room? That part is real. And then there's the 3rd type. The person absolutely convinced they're the crane. Posts about thinking differently. Talks endlessly about their unique perspective. Looks down at the chickens. Look closer. That's just a very confident chicken. Ji Shao never tried to stand out. He just was. The real crane isn't performing anything. It's not trying to be a crane. It simply can't help it. And honestly, that might be the only honest test. So here's my question for the comments, and I want you to be genuinely honest. Do you think cranes are born that way or made through effort? And which one do you actually think you are? Subscribe to K-Wisdom. New episodes every week.